All right, to my guest, thank you so much for being on the show. How are you doing? How you feeling?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me so much.
Yes, we've been kicking y'all because the show we were supposed to have our conversation this past Thursday, but Nicki Minaj had me outside drinking Henny, so I had to reschedule.
That's all right. Listen, we had to get out there and do what we need to do sometimes, okay?
Listen, okay, you would thought I wrote them damn lyrics the way I was, girl. I was going crazy in that stadium.
Yes, ma'am, as you should.
Now, why do you think there is often a strong reaction, both positive and negative, when it comes to women openly discussing their feelings about motherhood, including regret?
Ooh. I feel like the strong reaction most of the time comes from people who don't have the ability to empathize with
Mm-hmm.
women as a whole. It's not just men who have a strong reaction, but it's also other women who have a strong reaction. And I think just people in general have an issue with understanding differences of opinion amongst people. And
That's
when
a
you
fact.
come, when it comes down to a situation regarding having children, not wanting to have children or regretting to have children, it's like whatever a person's individual views are is going to determine how they're going to respond. So if they feel a difference of opinion from you and it's an idea that they've never been introduced to, they're going to have some type of pushback by it. And it's taboo because women are just supposed to always want children and be happy to have children. And that's not always the case.
Right. And that leads me to my next question because I feel like the media plays a part in that. I feel like the media portrays women or womanhood as you have to have a child, you got to be at home, you got to do this, you got to do that. And the moment you want something else, it's you looked at it in a certain way.
Yeah, it becomes a problem when you don't want the status quo. The
Mm-hmm.
media definitely
Facts.
plays a strong role because if you think back on what the media is, it's always been propaganda. It's always been something that is used as a tool to push people into a certain frame of mind. So when people have different opinions about motherhood because of
Mm-hmm.
experience, it kind of negates what's being told to you in the media. So it causes, a confliction in your mind about what's actually right and what you should or should not do.
Right. So, what are your thoughts on the differences in the way society responds to men versus women who express regret about parenthood? Because there's a lot of deadbeat niggas out there.
Man, girl, let me tell you. I mean, I feel like men in general are looked at as at a higher echelon or more superior anyway because of I don't want to like harp on patriarchy, but it is a fact that it exists and
Yeah.
it plays a role in like how women are viewed when they have autonomy, when they want to have their autonomy. And when men either are it's the same thing if they're single dads. Single dads are looked at totally different than single moms. And when they don't want to have children or when they want to be single and live their life however they choose to live it, it's more like, yeah, go man, do what you got to do, be you,
Facts.
dude. But then when a woman does it, it's kind of looked at and frowned upon as, okay, well, why aren't you falling in line? And I
Mm-hmm.
just think it's because, I don't know, I just feel like there's not enough clear like communication and back and forth when it comes to like positive discord
Mm-hmm.
about like women being able to have different perspectives and women being able to have different opinions and it actually being accepted to where it's okay.
Right.
Like we're just now starting to have those types of discords. So it's like it's kind of like, whoa, what are you talking about? Calm the fuck,
Right.
like calm down. Who are you? Stay in your place.
Right.
But it's I feel like it's a progressive advancement that we're all having, you know, from not only our mothers and our grandmothers, but even further back where there's gonna be evolution. And now it's just a matter of how people are gonna allow their minds to be opened up to see it.
So how do you feel about women who don't have custody of their kids? And these I'm talking about the women who are fully, she's making a face, y'all. I'm talking about the women
No.
that are fully able to take care of their kids. They just don't want to. How do you feel about what are your thoughts on that?
I actually agree with that. To be honest with you, I did make a short a while back as well, I think on TikTok and on my YouTube channel, where I talked about that. Like, why is it such a stigma for you to give the father custody of the child? And I honestly, my opinion on it, I don't have a problem with it. If my
Mm.
ex-husband and my youngest son's father were more competent and they were more able to
You would give up
facilitate,
your kids?
I wouldn't necessarily give them up, but if they were in a competent place financially, mentally, emotionally, spiritually,
Right.
I would have no problem if they chose or desired to take more of a lead role. I would have no problem doing that because I feel like there's a certain developmental need for a mother, and then there's a
Mm-hmm.
certain developmental need for a father, and it should be balanced in my opinion. But a lot of times, even with girls, like people think that just because you have a boy, they need their dad more. No, they need their mother too, because they need that foundational maternal imprint. But
Right.
also when it comes to girls needing fathers, they need that imprint as well, because it governs the decisions that they make in relationships in the future. It governs decisions that they make when it comes to basically how they carry themselves, who they
Yeah.
are, and their self-esteem. So I don't see any problem with women giving full custody to the fathers if it's not something selfish. Like, I don't see any problem with either parent making certain decisions if they're doing it from a place that's centering the child's best interest,
Mm.
you know?
Right.
Like,
I
because
can tell
people
you
really
thought
don't.
about this one.
No, it's because I have, because it's something that I feel like there's so many stigmas that people have on relationships and family dynamics. And I feel like those stigmas have created a lot of dysfunction in our society.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
just because it's been done that way, it's like, yes, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But at the same time, if it's been done that way so many times for so many years and it's not working, it's okay to create a new, idea or a new philosophy or something that you can try.
Yeah. So what are some common misconceptions about motherhood that you would like to address?
Oh, common misconception number one is that every woman wants to be a mother. That's not true.
Yeah.
And it's because, like, for me, you sometimes you think you want to be a mother and then you find out you don't. Sometimes you know ahead of time that you don't. Sometimes you don't, and then you have a child and then you change and find out that you actually enjoy it. So the common misconception is like the way women, for me, are looked at as if they're all going to be one way. That's the biggest issue I have, because we're all different, we're all individuals. And I just feel like some of the other things are basically like it's all gonna be happy. Like when you see the vlogs and you see the the moms who
Yeah.
are out there doing those, routines with their kids and things like that, it portrays a false reality of the situation.
Right.
Like it portrays, I came up during like the teen mom era. Like I was watching Teen Mom, which may have been part of the issue, but like it's like there's certain, me watching Teen Mom and seeing those women go through that and then ending up being a teen mom. When I went into motherhood and I had my son,
Mm-hmm.
I had a belief that all of the things that were happening weren't necessarily going to be positive all the time, but that I would enjoy it because that's my child. Sometimes you don't. Like
Yeah.
sometimes you get upset about things and there's no solution to things. And sometimes there's not a lot of support. Like people say it takes a village to raise a child, and then you'll be pregnant and people will be saying that they're going to be there and then they disappear.
Yeah.
So it's like
Especially when it's your partner.
it and it'll be your partner, it'll be your parents, it'll be your siblings, it'll be your friends that you came up with. Like people who came to my first son's baby shower talking all this smack about how they were going to be there and support me, and they were not there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like not even to watch my kids or put my kids off on them, but just to talk to. Like
Yeah.
people are not, I think people are not very much like well versed on what it takes during the process, what your body goes through during the process, how your emotions fluctuate during the process. I definitely don't think that there's enough education on postpartum depression.
Oh yeah. I mean, look how they treat us in the hospitals or just in the medical field. Like
Right.
I'm paraphrasing, but there was a situation where I think either Beyonce or Serena Williams was saying how they were in pain, and these are people who have the resources and they still not being believed. So I could
Yes.
just only imagine what it's like for those mothers who don't have the resources, and
They don't listen to you in the hospital.
the birth mortality rate is crazy.
They really it's really a long history of women. What this all boils down to, in my opinion, is the long history of women being manipulated into certain positions for the benefit of men. And it's not because I don't think it's necessarily like something that I'm holding a grudge about or angry about, but it's something that we all need to have in our reality to change, because
Right.
that's what it is. Like when I was in the hospital with my first son, it was people not listening to me from the jump. When he was kicking the monitor off my stomach and I was, 4 centimeters dilated, the lady kept telling me to sit down and stop my dilation. I ended up having to have a C-section and get cut open. I still have a gripe about that.
Right.
After I had him, my blood was coming back up through my IV and I had basically a fever. And I was freezing in the hospital and nobody was doing anything about it. And I was telling her, like, why is the blood coming back up in my IV? It's not supposed to be doing that.
Right.
Like, even if it is okay for it to happen, something is wrong. Like, nobody paid attention. I mean, they did to a certain degree, but they're trying to get their job done.
Well,
So,
nobody handle you with care.
yeah. And it's like a lot of times girls, young girls especially, they'll be in love. They'll think that everything is going to be cool with their partner, like because everything was cool when they were just a couple.
Yeah.
But, when it comes down to it, once you go through all of those things and once you have all those experiences, if you don't have a partner who's emotionally mature and who's supportive and communicates properly, like you could run into issues where you can't even speak for yourself.
Yeah. I think that's the biggest thing I've been reading when I was doing research on this and I was going through your comments and stuff. And my heart really broke for a lot of women. And I think that's one of my biggest fears, like, because I don't have children and I do want to have children, but I kill a nigga if he got me believing that we about to have a fairy tale and then he just up and leave. Like,
Oh
that is so
man.
fucking crazy.
It happens all the time. Like there have been several mothers, like my ex-husband, we were married before I had my child, but there were other issues in that situation. I have created, content about this too, but like there's sometimes where you have partners who just leave. There's sometimes where you have partners who are manipulative and
Right.
who play with your head, but like especially when they leave, because with my youngest son, he has a different father, and we were okay, but he was not there. Like he was there physically, but he was not there mentally. He was not there to support me in all of the facets that I needed to be supported in that moment. When I had my child with him, when I had my youngest son. And then basically like it was all on me. Like I had to foot majority of the bills. And it's
Right.
like when I talk to you about it and when I tell you like I don't want us to break up, like I want this to work, I just need you to put in more effort and do more. It's like, oh, you asking for too much. Like what the fuck? You know what I'm saying? Like
Right.
what do you mean I'm asking for too much? I just had a baby and I done got out here back in the workforce. I was pregnant at work and working my whole pregnancy. I'm tired.
Yeah. I know you have 3 kids. So the first two is when you were younger, you was a teen mom, and then the
Yeah.
last one was with your ex-husband.
No, my first two was when I was a teen mom, but I was married. That was with my husband, my first two.
Okay.
And we were married like right out of high school.
Mm.
And I had my first son, which was unexpected, but we got married when I found out I was pregnant because I was in a relationship with him and we had a good relationship. I will never say that I did not love my husband.
Right.
It's just as dynamics changed. As soon as I had my first baby, I got pregnant again, had the second baby, and it's just like dynamics just kept shifting in a really negative way. And I think for me, I didn't do a lot of research into like him and his family. And like, I did know them, but I didn't
Right.
know them. You know what I
Do you
mean?
think age play a part in this? Because y'all were very young.
Yeah, we were super young. I was 18 when I had my first son. We got married when I turned 18. Age plays a role. I feel like also your upbringing plays a role. A lot of the reason why I ended up being with him was because I lost my mom when I was 13.
Wow. That was my next question. What is your perception of motherhood when you was growing up?
See, and that's the thing. My mom was a single mom. I come from a family of really educated people. Like I come from a family of teachers. When my mom passed away, my uncle adopted me. That's why I moved down here to Georgia. And
Where you from?
I'm from Chicago.
That's right. That's right.
So yeah. So I watched my mom in Chicago and she was doing it. Like everything that needed to be done, she was doing it. And my perception of her growing up was like, I love my mom. Like my mom is great. Like my mom was literally my rock for
Yeah.
everything. And she never dropped the ball. Like even when she did drop the ball, she really didn't drop the ball because she would always overextend. She would always like be perfectionist in a way. And I think the dynamics that I saw growing up was between my mom and my grandmother, which created a lot of like confusion sometimes because I had such a good relationship with my mom, but they had such a bad relationship. Like they would butt heads all the time.
Did you ever
And
find out why?
you know, both my mom and my grandmother have passed away, but from what I can tell in my family, like what my uncle says, it's like my mom was very much so what's the word? She was very independent, I would say, but not basically the status quo. Like she would not fall into line. My family is super strict. Like they're like, okay, you have to do life this way. You got to do it this way. You got to go to school. You got to get good grades. Then you got to go to college. Then you got to do this. Then you got to do that. But
Well,
it's
that's
crazy.
following that whole good girl,
Yes, it's like that. But you
good
know
girl
why they
status
did?
quo.
They did that because my aunt was a teen mom too. My aunt actually
Mm.
was a teen mom, and there's a lot of like sometimes there's a lot of secrets in families that they don't tell you, but that's why they kind of shelter you or treat you in the way that they do.
Yeah.
So when I was coming up, it's like everybody had basically like planned my life out for me because I was the youngest grandchild. So my mom was the last one to have a baby, and I was the last grandchild of my grandmother. And it's like they were like, "Oh yeah, gonna do this, gonna do that," and we
Right.
got this plan for her. And it's like in my mom's mind, she was like, yes, that's great to be supportive, but she wanted me to kind of like follow my own path because she was the type of person who wanted to follow her own path. And that didn't necessarily agree with what other people wanted her to do, especially my grandmother.
Right. So
You
did you
know,
ever want kids?
I did. Like, I still, let me tell you, the reason why I said I regret having kids is because I regret, in hindsight, not paying attention to a lot of the things that I know now, but sometimes you can't help it because you got to go through it to know it. But the
Right.
real reason why I regret having kids is because of the life and the childhood that they were kind of like forced to have because of my lack of preparation. Like I regret not being fully prepared and not really understanding why I was doing it at such a young age. I wanted a family from the time I was young. Like I used to dream about my house and like the way my yard would look when I was a kid. Like, and I still have a desire to be in a committed relationship with somebody or at least have a functioning, healthy relationship with somebody.
Right.
And either merge families or build a family or adopt a child. Like if it becomes a time where I get too old to have my own children, I don't mind adopting children or like being that nurturer because I have always wanted that.
Where do you think that come from? Or do you think, because I know your mom passed away when you was 13. So do you think that came from her? Or do you think like were there other women in your life that you were looking at like, okay, I can see myself doing this? Or they was like the model of what you thought motherhood and just being a woman was?
There were like when I grew up in Chicago, I was in a lot of different programs. Like I grew up
Mm,
around a lot of different races and ethnicities, and I would spend time in other people's households. So
mm,
even though I didn't necessarily, even with my mom, like the way that she nurtured me, the way that she checked on me and talked to me, she never talked to me like I was dumb. She never talked to me like I didn't know what was going on. She was always the type of woman to educate me in a way where I would be prepared for this time in my life. And then
right.
I would go out to these other households, either through like the YMCA. I was in Chicago Children's Choir. I was in Leaders Club. Like I had a lot of things that I was in. And I would see like different families that would actually be like two-parent households, or I would see families where it might be a single mom. There was even a family where it was a single dad and I had friends that had stay-at-home dads and working
Mm,
moms, and it was a lot of different dynamics that I grew up seeing. So I could kind of pick like little pieces of those dynamics and be like, wow, I really like that. And I think that's what
right.
ended up happening.
I'm just
Yeah.
curious. So, do you believe in an abortion?
I don't believe in using abortion as a means of birth control because that's trash.
Yeah.
That's trash. And I really don't like the fact that women have taken it there because I don't agree with women's bodies being controlled at all. I don't agree with that because nobody's controlling men's bodies. So, you
And they can
know,
have a baby when they 80.
right, they can have babies and repopulate whenever the hell they want. So I don't
Right.
understand why you're trying
That's
to,
who need to be on birth control.
listen, and that's what I was saying when I say that it's like the control of feminine energy or the control of women because of power and those types of dynamics. But for me, I just feel like women should have the choice. I do feel like what women need to understand with everything that was going on with Roe versus Wade getting overturned is like, okay, if you're going to use it as a means of birth control, then you're like inviting the devil in. You get what I'm saying? Like if you're going to be irresponsible with your choices, you're inviting the devil in to be able to say, "Oh, look at you. This is why we're taking away your autonomy." So
Right.
don't agree with it on that aspect, but I feel like there are women who get violated, there are women who get raped, there are women who are, molested and sexually assaulted, and they should have the right to say, no, I don't want to have this baby.
Yeah, because a lot of people who live in marginalized communities can afford certain resources to get things done. So, like certain communities or organizations that offer, services that are affordable
Right.
don't even have that option no more. And I think that's fucked up.
I do. I agree with you completely. It's totally fucked up because it's like you give an inch and somebody takes a mile. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
it's I would say it's one thing, like maybe I would have said, okay, before you take away the right as a whole, or you give these states that are crooked the right to decide, at least create some type of laws or legislature where men can have more rights in the situation. Like maybe we can go to court, we can prove our financial
Right.
capabilities, we can do this to mediate the situation. And then if it comes to be that this nigga is a deadbeat and he
Yeah.
ain't gonna do shit for his child, then yeah, you have the right to go as a woman and get an abortion. But if a man comes in and says, maybe I want full custody of the child, if she doesn't want the child, and people can weigh in on that type of thing, but you went straight to cutting it off.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, okay. you
Yeah.
know
I would have never thought that in this lifetime that the fact that in a lot of states you do not have control over your body is crazy to me. Like
Girl,
it's
it's
heartbreaking.
crazy.
My heart goes out to every woman who's in a situation like that because that's scary.
And I would say honestly, like I really wish that, for the work that I do and for the platform that I have, like I really would like for it to be a place where girls and even women can come and just gain whatever wisdom, because it's like that's another thing that you haven't brought it up yet, but when we were talking about like mothers and my example of like mothers and the feminine energy, a lot of us have been stigmatized as women who are older not to really help the younger generation coming up. There's a lot of bullshit to me
Mm-hmm.
with women being like, oh, you gonna find out, you go figure it out, that type
Oh,
of
I think them
situation.
bitches be hating though. Like,
And they do. And it's like a lot of women do want younger girls to succeed, but it's like I feel like as women, we should be doing as much as we can to just mentor
oh
these younger
yeah.
girls and try to like show them that like, hey, this is what you're gonna get. And I know as a younger person, you might not listen, but I'm just trying to hip you to some game and let you know.
Yeah, but that was the whole reason why I started the professional homegirl because I'm just like one of my favorite
Yeah.
lyrics from Jay-Z is "Ho did that, so you don't have to go through that." Because I just feel like a lot of the shit that I went through, if somebody would have put me onto game, a lot of shit could have been avoided. And I just feel like niggas is not just keeping it real with each other, especially
Hmm.
when it comes to older people in general. So I
Yeah.
always said that PhD is like the pink print to like life. Like you have your breadcrumbs here and there because you are hearing factual stories on how women were able to overcome and succeed. And because life is not easy, no matter what path you're on, you're gonna go through some hurdles. You might even get hit by a bus on the way, like
Right.
but you're gonna make it. And I think that that's why we need to have these conversations and continue to have these conversations because it's needed and it's important.
I agree. And I really respect what you're doing with the podcast. Like,
oh, thank you, sis.
All of the stories are just like things that I'm like, yes, come on, like, because we need to talk about it. And like for me, saying that I regret having kids, and you said you read the comments, it's like so many women, and that's why I said that so many women came, of course, and there there are haters here and there, but it's like so many women negate other women's stories. And it's like, if we can just understand the relatability between each of our stories, even if the details are different,
right,
we can understand that, we have to, climb those walls and get over those hurdles and face those challenges, then we would be a lot more productive when it comes to defending ourselves against those things, like them overturning abortion rights and,
yeah,
having men feel as if they can use us as a portal to like control.
yeah.
So I don't know. I wish that it was more acceptable and like common for women to not necessarily agree with each other's choices all the time,
But at
but
least
be able,
understand.
yes, oh my God.
Yeah, at
Like
least
just
understand.
understand, girl, because you've been there somewhere.
Yeah, and we don't have to always agree, but let's agree to disagree. Like
Yeah,
we may
yeah.
not, you know what I'm saying? I think that's the biggest issue because at the end of the day, we have a lot more in common than we do when it comes to differences.
I'm
So
telling you, and we got a lot more people coming against us than the ones that we have for us. So we need to be for each other. And it's not always easy because there's a lot of things that women do that I don't necessarily agree with 100%. But what I've learned in my life through specifically having my children is that every day it's like it's like we in school. Okay.
yeah,
We in school every day and we're gonna learn different things. And you might have a certain opinion today that you're not gonna have at the end of the night. Like you might
yeah,
change your mind once the day is over, depending on the occurrences that you've experienced throughout that day. So I know that there's a room for growth and there's going to be a learning curve. So it's just like understanding that would make things so much more seamless for us,
yeah.
to be able to stick together.
So what were the factors that led you to realize that you had children with the wrong men?
Ooh, the amount of pressure that I felt like I was under, it was kind of like, I have children with you, but I'm also your mama.
Mm-hmm.
I have children with you, but I have to fill out a job application for you. I have
Mm-hmm.
children with you, but you don't know how to call and pay a bill. You can't schedule a doctor's appointment. I got to do all that shit by myself.
Right.
I got a kid with you, but when we have to find a place to stay, I'm the only one coming up with a plan.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like, I realized that I had children with the wrong person because it was all on me.
Right.
And I was exhausted all the time.
Mm.
And, it's like, it's crazy because I was begging niggas. I was
Right.
begging. There's discrepancies, and I'm not saying I'm not, I'm not saying I'm faultless in the situation. I have my faults and I had my things that I had to grow up on.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I feel like I came into situation way more mature. And I think that there's factors to that. But I came into the situation way more mature than these dudes. And instead of rising to the occasion, it was more like, what the fuck you want me to do?
Right.
And so I was like, oh, that's how it is?
Right.
You know what I mean? Okay. That's fine. And as a woman, we're already thinking 10 steps ahead. Like once we decide to finally leave a situation, we've already decided, a long time ago that we were going to leave and we were just getting things in order.
Yeah. So I wonder how the experiences you have with the wrong partners, how did this make you look at yourself?
Ooh, it made me really have to face my demons.
Yeah.
It made me really have to face, like, why did you do that to yourself?
Mm-hmm.
Why did you make that choice? Like, what is wrong with you that you felt like that level of degrading or that level of degeneracy was where you needed to be. Like, what the fuck is going on for real? We need to get into it.
Right.
And that's what I had to do. It's like, why did you make that? It made me have to face my emotions about my mom passing and like what that took me through. It made me have to
What were the
realize,
emotions you felt? I mean,
girl,
obviously.
well, I know, and I know what you mean.
Right.
It's a plethora of things. It's very difficult, and the way that I found out about it was fucked up.
How did she pass
And
away, if you don't mind me asking?
well, she had lupus. She
Mm.
had lupus, which is like an autoimmune disease.
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically when, like, I think your white blood cells
They
attack
like
the,
fighting the red
yeah,
blood
it's like
cells or
the
something?
red blood cells. There's like 6 cells in your body. Like, if you get a cold, there's gonna be like sickness in the cells of your blood.
Mm-hmm.
But then it's like, instead of the white blood cells attacking the sick cells, they're attacking the good cells, and it breaks down your body from the inside.
Mm.
So it's like, whenever she got sick, the her blood and her immune system wasn't doing what it was supposed to do, so it would just escalate. And when everything was said and done, like, she had went into the hospital, I was literally paying the rent, writing checks by myself, putting myself on the bus to school, combing my own hair, doing everything. I was 13.
Did you know she was sick?
Yeah, I knew she was sick in 3rd grade. She
Okay.
finally told me she was sick in 3rd grade. I don't know how long she was sick, but she told me in 3rd grade. So at that point, I was just like, I was like in-home health nurse. I started cooking. I started cleaning. I was doing everything. I was going places when she needed me. The only thing I couldn't do was drive.
Right.
But it wasn't like she was putting it on me. That was my mama. I'm gonna do it.
Right.
So when it all, went down, I knew she was sick, and I actually went to the hospital with her. She checked herself into the hospital because it was just getting real bad.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, that was the last time I saw her face to face, is when we went together to the hospital. And I think
Oh, I'm sorry. No, take your time.
no, it's okay. Cause it's like, I need to talk about it. I feel like, as a child, I knew that day she wasn't coming back.
Right.
But I'm happy because I know why my mom was here.
Mm-hmm.
And she knew that I was meant for so much more. And the time that I had with her, she used it so wisely. And I'm so grateful for her for my entire life. Everything that I've faced is because I was going to go through it anyway, but I was so much more prepared because she gave me everything I needed. And I knew her sacrifice in a spiritual sense because I've had to grapple with this for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that she made that sacrifice so that she could watch over me now and be more powerful now in order to help guide me through the things that I'm going to be facing.
Yeah.
But it was just like me not dealing with that. Me feeling dead inside, me not caring and being reckless because I
Mm-hmm.
didn't want to face my emotions. And I feel like a lot of women go through a lot of deep shit
Yeah.
that, we end up pushing it down, and we end up trying to like
Especially when
hide
you have kids as responsibilities. Like, it's a lot.
it's a lot when you have kids. And a lot of the times I feel like what leads a lot of women into making reckless decisions with the wrong person and having children is because we don't have enough education on how to deal with those things. We don't have enough education on how to deal with a parent's death, or how to deal with a sibling's death, or anybody passing away in your life. We don't know how really to deal with abuse and any type of situation that we face in our younger years that kind of imprints on us
Yeah.
and causes us to make those decisions. And I feel like, as a mom, once you get into it and you haven't dealt with what got you into it, and then you get into it and you have to further push it down, it just creates this like volcano
Yeah.
inside of you that it's never going to make it better. Like, I think a lot of the reason why I had a child so young is because I wanted the family life. I did want to have a marriage and children, and that's what I wanted. And I was like, you know what? Life is too short. My mama's dead. Fuck it. Let's do it right now before I die. That's
You're
pretty
right.
much that's pretty much kind of where my head was at. And it's not necessarily easy or the right thing to do, but like that's where my head was at.
Mm-hmm.
And I just kind of settled for the first person who, like, I dated as a teen, but like not as an adult. And like,
Right. And then you was also, I mean, 18 is still young. Like you still a
yeah,
baby. Yeah. That's
I
a
didn't, I was still had milk on my tongue, girl. Like,
yeah.
it was
But I
just so
think you make a
much.
good point though about how mothers or just people in general, like I just now started to understand a lot of things that I do now is a reflection because of my childhood. And when I see these mothers, especially these young mothers, and like they be breaking down to the point where they even commit suicide, it breaks my
Mhm.
heart because it's like, postpartum is real. Like
Yeah,
having a
it's real.
baby, that changes everything.
It changes your body, it changes your mind, it changes the way that your life looks on an
Mm-hmm.
everyday basis. And I really don't feel like there's enough support. And
Yeah.
you know, I get irritated because niggas always love to bring up the fact that women can get on child support and they got all these programs for women and all these programs don't do shit for you for real. They not in that bedroom when that baby crying at 3 o'clock in the morning and won't stop.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like those the child support, I'm owed thousands of dollars in child support, girl. Am I
So is
seeing
either
that
one of your
money?
parents is either one of the fathers active?
I mean, what I will say is my ex-husband has good parts, but he also has bad parts. He's the
Mm,
only one who's active at this time. My youngest son's father, my youngest son doesn't even see his dad as his dad. He sees my ex-husband as his dad. And
mm.
while I appreciate right now, while we're doing this podcast, he took them for the weekend. He usually takes them almost every weekend, and we
Well, that's
rotate.
good.
And it's good, yes, but it's also to have a hand and a thumb to control my life. So you can take them and you
Yeah.
can do all this stuff and they can come back with toys and they be done went places and they got this or that, but you can't pay no child support ever.
Mm.
So it don't make no sense.
So what would be an ideal situation for you?
I mean, an ideal situation would be, maybe if
Like
you can't pay,
financially supporting you?
yeah, financially supporting me because like, okay, it kind of feels like he doesn't want me to be supported, but he'll support his kids. But if I'm out on the street, all the better. Because
I get what you're saying.
it's a revenge thing. And it's really deep and it's a long story. But like he's mad. I think he's mad because I stopped loving him in a romantic way, in a relationship type of way. I no longer wanted the relationship. I no longer wanted the marriage
Mm-hmm.
because I was doing things in the marriage by myself.
Right.
I was basically a married single mom. When they say married single mom, that's how I felt. And he was bringing money in and he was working after I would help him get jobs and find situations. But there was a
Right.
long time when my oldest two kids were young, we were living in a one bedroom apartment with two kids.
Mm.
And he was working at like McDonald's. And I was working trying to find, I was serving tables and stuff, but I had ended up getting a corporate job. Like I had ended up kind of coming up. And I'm like, you got to come up too. Like we can't keep living in these apartments dealing with these situations. I want to be in a house. Like I want to be able to have the kids together. And it's like when I started asking him to do more, oh,
Mm.
girl, if you don't shut the fuck up and sit down somewhere, that's pretty much his attitude and how his actions portrayed.
Right. Was there a certain situation? Because I was looking at your videos and I feel like I can't, I think it was one particular video where I feel like you was that, it was, that was it. Like you was fed up. Like, I think you was
Yeah.
really going in saying like, yo, I
Yes.
really regret having kids. Like, if I would do it again, it would be a dub. Like, what did
Well,
something trigger it? Like, what happened during that time?
I just felt like I had put so much into the marriage.
Mm-hmm.
I
Oh, so
laid
you
on,
were still married at the time?
well, not when I made the videos, but
Okay.
when I just felt like, well, yeah, I don't know which video you're talking about, but I kind of get what you're saying. So basically, like the part that made me just regret it was like these past few years have been super stressful. Like
Right.
these past few years, I feel like everybody's been going through their own personal, like life-changing moments.
especially
But
with the pandemic.
oh my God. And that's what was really tough. Like from the pandemic to now, I've literally transitioned from corporate America to self-employment and like had little odd jobs in between here and there and like different things going on. But it was either like I was just tired at a certain point, especially with the pandemic, it triggered it. I was tired of sacrificing my relationship with my kids to be able to survive. Because even when I had a corporate job and I was making good money, the amount of money that it would take, because my youngest son's father left when he was like 1, he was still in pull-ups. So the amount of money that it would take to maintain my children and they growing out their shoes all the time. And like it's like these last few years have been hell for
Yeah.
me because so many things have changed. Like, and I just got to a point where I was just kind of like tired. Like I knew I was depressed. I was like super depressed. And I have had, suicidal thoughts at times, but I've also had therapy and counseling
Yeah.
and like working through those different things. And also my spirituality has helped me a lot. But there was just like so much piled onto me these last 4 years. And then my children were having behavior. Like, yeah, it's a good thing that they go to their dad's house, but he tells them to do things like call the police on me if they don't like what I'm telling them to do. And it's happened. In the last 4 years, I've had the police at my house and child protective services several times.
Wow. Now that's fucked up.
And it's behind him or somebody on his side making some type of claim, or it's behind my kids making some type of claim that he put in their mind. And then, and this is the thing, because I'm an open book, I haven't really talked a lot about this with anybody like publicly, but like that was hell for me because every waking moment, I was sacrificing everything for my children.
No,
And you
I can
got the
imagine. You got the fucking police at my door. Like,
right, and you got the fucking nerve. It was like Christmas Day one year, these past 4 years. I can't remember if it was last year or the year before that. I think it was the year before, 2021 or 2. He had the police at my house on Christmas Day because they got up late. They opened their presents. I cooked breakfast for everybody. We was watching movies downstairs. He pulled up at the time in the court document. Oh, you can be on time in the court document when it comes to you coming over here fucking shit up. But when it comes to you paying child support, you don't know what it says.
Right.
So he was over here on time and they said, well, we don't want to go yet. We don't want to go yet. He was like, all right. Had the police at my door on Christmas Day. Had them knocking on my door. Had my children have to witness that on Christmas fucking Day.
Wow.
And it's been stuff like that. That's just one example. I tried to get him in family therapy. He dodged the therapist the first time. Then he dodged the therapist the second time. And finally, when he came, it was because the DFAX lady basically said, if you don't come, we're going to start looking at your ass the next time you try to start something with her.
Right. Because now the math is starting to math, nigga.
Yeah.
Right.
And every case that I've had case, and this has been happening for years, more than the last 4 years, but it was really bad this last 4 years. It's been so many people tell me, oh, you like when I just had 2 kids with him and he was the only one I had children with before I had my youngest son. He had a case. He called the police on me then too. He set me up, was supposed to get the kids from my house when they got off the bus, wasn't there, called the police while I was at work. So it's been shit like that has just been happening, and I just been getting it. I just been overcoming it. I just been, keeping going.
It's a lot.
And it's a lot. And it just this culmination of everything that I was under, including stress, and then my kids transitioned into teenagers, and it was a different ball game with that. It was just like, look, I'm about to fucking snap.
It was one video. I knew you was at your wits end. You said something to the effect of like, you did things that you weren't proud of, but you had to do it because you had to survive. And I'm like, I know that feeling.
Girl, it's definitely, yeah, it's true. I've definitely done things I'm not proud of. There's been a lot of times where I've finessed to get money to pay a bill because I didn't want my kids to not have water.
Yeah.
It's been times where I've not necessarily treated people in the way that I would really want to treat them because of the anger and the bottled up frustration. Like when I'm on the phone with just people and I'm arguing, trying to keep a bill together or set up a payment arrangement and somebody's fucking with me on the other line, they don't want to try to work with me and I go off on them. Like, it's things that it goes from small scale to large scale, but it's definitely things that I've had to do in the course of being a mother that are degrading. It's low, it's degrading, it's hurtful, it scars you. And I think, you know, I have empathy. I don't necessarily agree with continuing to do that. I've always tried to pull myself out of those situations and not continue it. But I'm not mad at the girls who feel like that's their only way because they ain't seen nothing else.
Yeah. So let me try something new.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They sometimes women don't know because that's all they've seen. That's all they've seen growing up. That's all they've seen their mother do and their grandmother do. And that's the only way that they know how to make it. But then there comes a time as well when you have to take accountability. And I'm a strong, firm believer of that. To where, you know, you have to take accountability for your actions and you have to just do your best to not make the same mistakes again, to at least identify what got you into that position so that you won't be in that position again.
Yeah. And I know you said that a lot of people kind of fell off as you was going through your journey with motherhood, but did you have anybody? Because I can tell like them last few years were really tough. So like, was your uncle around or did you have like any close girlfriends? Like,
I have had a few close girlfriends. I got one good girlfriend that I've known for several years, like I believe like 12 years now or more.
Oh, that's good.
And she always has my back. Like, she's listed as my emergency contact. She was when I was working and I had my was it a 401k? I don't know. When I had my basically like my insurance to give my kids the 401k or life insurance, she's the beneficiary. So that, because I know she's gonna give them their due. Like, I know she's gonna handle it.
She gonna hold it down, right?
She gonna hold it down. But my uncle, we fell out. Like, when I got pregnant the first time, he was so mad that I didn't do what he wanted me to do. And that was part of the reason too why I got pregnant. Because I was very irritated with people telling me this is how my life is gonna go. And I just had lost my mom. And it's like, you're sitting here in my face, bringing up my mom on regular occasions and the things that she used to do that irritated you because you see me doing it too. And you think that's going to make me want to listen to you about discipline in different situations?
Right.
So when I did get pregnant, I had my kids in all these years. It's like, yeah, there have been times my uncle has helped me. And mind you, he's an ex-Morehouse graduate. He's ex-Spelman professor. He just retired. Like, he has been in the game. He's at Morehouse. He's taught at Spelman. He's tenured into that whole environment. And he wanted me to follow certain footsteps. And I was just like, that's not my path. And I don't know why it's not my path, but I want to explore and try to figure out what my calling is.
Or do you think it could have been your path, but it was being forced upon you, so it felt like that's not what you wanted to do? Or it could have been something that you wanted to do, but it felt like resistance because people were telling you that what you need to do?
Yes, and that's a part of me that's kind of hard-headed. It's like, I don't like being told what to do. And the more gentle that you are with me, the more that I'm like, okay, you know, let's see. But he was like, no, this is what you're gonna do. You're gonna do it the way I say. And that was a part of it too. But like, as this time, I feel like he held a grudge and I held a grudge because even when I did get pregnant, he was disappointed in me, but he made plans about how my life was gonna go when I was pregnant. He was like, oh, I was gonna let you stay here and the baby could have an extra room and you was gonna do this and I'm like, you still don't get it. Like, it's like you're pushing me away instead of listening. Like, it was more like a lecture. That's one thing that I felt like. He's a great guy. Like, he's a great man. He's a great example, but it was more a lecture than a conversation.
It's all about how you go about things.
Yeah. And it's like, once I decided to go my own way, it's like, oh, well, you decided, deal with your shit.
Yeah.
But then when it comes to my boy cousins, when they fucked up, when my cousin dropped out of college, when he had issues with you know, the military, when my other cousin was on drugs, y'all let them come back to the point where I got abused by my cousin who was on drugs when he came back because I was a teenager. He didn't like sexually abuse me, but he physically abused me. So it's like you stood up for them when they was in a fucked up situation, but then when it comes down to me being in a fucked up situation, there was a limit to his support.
Right. Do you feel like you fully healed from all of this? Because I know throughout several of your videos, like you very adamant about like you wish you can go back because you would not have your children. So do
Yeah.
you think this kind of like harden you in a sense or like change your perspective on life? Like,
I definitely feel like it's changed my perspective on life, and I don't feel like I'm healed completely from it at all. Like, I don't see healing as something that you're gonna start and then finish. It's a
oh yeah, it's definitely
consistent
continuous.
journey.
Yeah.
But at the same time, yes, like I'm definitely adamant as far as like if I would have gone back and changed it, I wouldn't have done it. And it's not even from a selfish perspective for me. It's honestly for my children.
Mm.
And I think it did a lot of the ways that I wish things could be different is, centering back to like me just not having them. And
Yeah.
it's not that I don't want them to have life. I think that's what a lot of people in my comments like really misunderstood, was that it's not that I don't want them to have their life. If I didn't want them to have their life, abortion was legal back then. I could have just handled it.
Yeah.
And people asked me, did I want to do that? And I said no, because in my heart, I could feel that child is a life to me. Maybe
Right.
that's not necessarily what everybody agrees, but that's how it felt to me. So just the fact that I was selfish, and because of those different hard-headed, immature mentalities, now this child grows up with a lackluster or less than, ideal experience.
Do you think your kids can feel that?
Yeah, they definitely feel it. They definitely feel it. And I think a lot of people fail to realize how much kids know.
Yeah, that's a fact.
So
Listen, my kid, my niece, she said something to my best friend, and it kind of hurt my feelings because I used to always have time to like see her and stuff, but like since life just been life and in both good ways and annoying ways, I just haven't been able to see her.
right.
And she said something to the effect of like, because she called me my family name, Nene, and she was like, and Nene's always busy. She can't come by and come by and see me for 5 minutes. Or yeah, and I know it's something so minor, but like that really hurt my feelings because I'm like, damn, like every time she asked me to come see her, I'm like, I'm really busy. I'm trying to figure it out. But also I'm like, look, girl, I have to work. I have a business
Yeah.
that's growing. You're you're just in school.
Girl,
But I
this is life.
right, but I say that to say like that really made me feel away. So I can only imagine as a mother how you feel knowing that your kids can sense your unhappiness.
Girl.
Because I can tell that I feel like from somebody who knows what it feels like to really survive, like you're not happy. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. And when you're in survival mode, nobody around you is happy. So
Yeah,
it's
that's a
it
fact.
breaks my heart all the time. I've shed several tears about that exact situation because I just wish that they could have had a better chance. And mind you, a lot of people took it from me saying and the things that I said that I'm not a good mom. Like my kids have had so many experiences.
Mm-hmm.
When I was in a better financial situation, they were going to birthdays at Top Golf, I Fly. We was going to Legoland. You know what I'm saying? Like it was an enriching experience. I would go to the museums with them and like do little things for kids, and we would go to festivals. It was very much so me putting everything into them and not having anything left for myself.
Mm.
And they would see how hard I was pushing and how hard I was trying. And they always had new shoes on the first day of school. And I think that's kind of like they had nice clothes, they had nice things. I didn't want them to lack for anything. And I think that's a mentality that a lot of women, especially Black women, have. They don't want their kids to lack for anything because they feel how their children feel.
Yeah,
They
because
can
we've been there
sense.
before. Yeah.
Right. And they can sense it. You can sense it. If you're any mom worth a damn, you can sense your child's emotions
Right.
because
Like
you're
if
in
you
touch with
care.
them.
Right.
Right. So it's like a lot of women get into that trap where they feel like they have to overcompensate. And that's something I had to learn that I didn't have to do. It was more important for me, though, to talk to them. Like my mom raised me to know, like, hey, this is how you conduct yourself outside. This is
Yeah.
what you may expect. Like, but when I would see them going through things, I would really try to talk to them about what was going on, not so much in an adult way, but in a way where I'm not sugarcoating things and lying to them. Like, I would try to be as honest as possible in a version of the situation that their, you know, age level could understand.
Right. Because
So
you don't
that
want to
could
hide anything from them either. You want to be honest with them for sure.
exactly. And that communication played like a huge role. Like my oldest son, he's about to be 14 at the end of the month. My second son, he's about to be 13. And then my youngest son just turned 7 in March. So they're super independent. My sons know how to wash clothes, they know how to wash dishes, they know how to clean the house. They have the same level of skills that my mother raised me with, that a lot of mothers raise their girls with, but I gave those skills to them too, because I felt like it was important and it was vital. And when it's a situation where I do see them kind of having an emotional response, I just sit down and I talk to them, and I'm just like,
Right.
hey, this is what's going on, tell me how you feeling. Even when it's not anything going on, I check in with them and I'm like, how are you feeling emotionally? Like, what's going on in your heart? Like,
Yeah.
what have you been seeing? What have you been feeling?
And I
Is there
think that's important. I think that starts from home because I think that, like, I wish that more Black men would feel comfortable with being vulnerable. And I know that in this world that we live in, it don't always provide the space. So I get it, guys. I really
right?
do understand, but I just wish that men would have those conversations that are important to them. And I wish
Yeah.
that they felt that they could have those conversations in
And
certain spaces.
and that's that. I definitely agree with you. I don't necessarily have like this vendetta against men, and this is recent because there's been a long time where I've hated men because there's never really been a man in my life. Because my father's still alive. I didn't know where he was for a long time, but he's still alive and, you know, kicking. It's just there's never really been a man in my life that really had my back.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it caused a deep hatred for men in me. And I,
Yeah.
you know, and I can realize that. But at the same time, like, you live and you learn. And, you know, when you take a certain level of accountability yourself, you can see different aspects of a situation because it's not necessarily always black and white. And I do feel like a lot of men are put in situations where they're made from a young age to feel like emotions are feminine,
Yeah.
or, you know, they're made to feel like emotions don't have a place in their life, in their structure. And I can empathize with that. And I feel like it's kind of like the embedded issues that a lot of women face. It's just for men, that's what they go through.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, there's a certain level of accountability also that I feel like as an individual, it takes to like see that and
Yeah.
address it. Like the same way I see and address the reason why I recklessly had children, I feel like men have a responsibility, not just to everybody around them, but to themselves for their own
Yeah.
happiness, to see and take accountability for why they are the way that they are.
But I think that's why it goes back to your point of you saying earlier, like having a man and a woman, a mom and a dad in a child's life, regardless of the gender, is very important because there's
Mhm.
just certain things that a woman can teach a child that a man can't, and vice versa. And I think it's so important when it comes to the developmental skills. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Right. Because if I would have had a man in my life, because my uncle, I'm not gonna say my uncle didn't do anything. Like he definitely instilled a certain level of work ethic and values within me, but
It
it
hits
was more
different when it comes from the person that made you, though.
yeah, it is. And it's like he was always in my life from when I was a baby. So it's like my dad was never really there. He was there in the beginning from like maybe 0 to 4. But
Mm-hmm.
like even listening to my uncle, he definitely told me a lot of things that were valuable, but it was delivered, like you said earlier, in the wrong way, where it was kind of like just do it because I said so. This is what I said. And that's what I said. So that's what it is. And that's just how you
Right.
have to do it. And it wasn't any explanation. So you know, it's hard to connect it sometimes when you don't have a lot of reference of a positive male role model or influence in your life, you know, and it just creates all of that jumbled up shit.
Yeah, but I think eventually, if you are in the space for it, I think you should have a conversation with him now, because who you were at 18 and who you are now, like, you are a grown woman. And I also think that you're able to, why are you smiling?
No, because it's funny you say that, because we recently did have a conversation.
See, yeah.
Yeah,
I
and
think that
it was good.
See, I think that when you are older, and this is something that I tell myself, like, it's easier for me to be able to articulate exactly what I'm feeling. And I can be
Right.
able to receive it more opposed to when I was younger and I'm not trying to hear shit. Like, how I feel is just how I feel. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Listen, I'm trying to tell you, and that's part of what we talked about. And he took accountability I think, you know what's crazy? It's funny you say that. And we were just talking about like men and their emotions and stuff. When we had that conversation, I feel like that conversation is what opened my eyes to a lot of the ways that I was being unfair to
See?
men.
Yeah.
Because, but you know what made that happen though? Is the fact that when we talked and I told him my feelings, he didn't push me away. He didn't make my feelings seem irrational. He listened to me. He heard me out and he took accountability for his part.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like, it was like, oh my God, like it opened my eyes to see like, wow, this actually feels right. You know, like,
Yeah.
and it made me realize a lot of the ways, even with the relationships I've had in my life, like how I
Mm-hmm.
was being irrational or unreasonable for people just by talking to him and having him accept me.
Yeah. It puts a lot of things into perspective. I tell you that much, because I know that
Yes,
feeling.
girl.
Yeah, yeah, no, I already know. So I'm happy that y'all had a conversation, because I think that's important. Because I think a lot of times, like, shit, life just be moving so fast,
Right,
and then before
right.
you know it, you damn near 50, and you just look back and you be like, damn, I wish I would have handled that situation
Mhm,
just a little bit differently. So I think that's a
mhm.
beautiful stuff, and it's also intricate when it comes to your healing, because like you said, healing is continuous, but
Man.
certain things can get you healed just a little bit faster, you know.
Right? They sure can. And you got to be open to it. Like you got to let it come towards you. You know,
Yeah,
because if you're against it, then it's not going to it's not going to make anything better. Like it's just going to create more blockages for you. And
yeah,
you know, I just think that that's where I'm at in my life, like with everything that's happened and everything that's kind of made me realize the way that I feel. It's kind of unfortunate and it's a little bit of a double-edged sword because I can't go back and change the past, but at
yeah,
the same time, like moving forward, I want to be a totally different, more evolved version of myself. Like I feel like I'm a wonderful person and nobody's ever going to change that for me because I know my
right.
spirit, but I know that there are ways that I could be even greater and how I could improve. And that's the type of life that I want to live moving forward. I don't want to be like self-sabotaging anymore, you
Yeah,
know?
absolutely. And you deserve to be in the best, happiest space that you can be in, because life is hard.
Right.
Life is hard. I'm just curious. So if you didn't have children, like, what were your goals? Like, where did you see yourself
Oh
if
man,
children were in the picture?
I just feel like I would have had more space and opportunity to kind of discover myself.
Mm-hmm.
I don't exactly know because I was definitely into like music, performing. Like I definitely don't want to be in the music industry or anything like that. That is a dream that is gone, long gone.
Yeah.
But but I do enjoy certain artistic and creative ventures. Like I
Because I
really
could tell
love
you
to
creative, y'all. I'm looking at her background. She has like
listen.
artwork everywhere and
I got my
spirituality.
paintings and stuff, girl. I got my paintings up there. Listen,
Yeah.
I'm definitely a creative person and I really love to paint. I really love to like do karaoke and sing. I love to like create different artistic works and like just be a seeker of knowledge. Like I really like to I could read more, child, if I I feel like
Yeah.
it's not necessarily like anything that I feel like is like super big, but like even now with the things that I do you know, with my career and my business and how I want to create now, it would be different because I wouldn't have the same experiences, but I feel like I may have been further along in a stable place in life. And that's just an assumption because you never really know. It's like no matter what path you choose, you usually end up at the same destination that you were meant to be at regardless.
That's a
It's
fact.
just, you know, a
You just
different
took a
set of
deep,
experience.
you took a different route. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You take a different route and you discover things along the way. And like, I just feel like I might have, mm, I always wanted to help people. I always wanted to give back. I feel like I might have been like some type of psychologist or,
Yeah. I mean, you still
counselor.
can be.
And that's my plan. Like I want to go back to school. I want to
Mm-hmm.
live my life to the fullest. Like my kids, my older two kids, they're gonna be 18 soon. And that's another thing that I think mothers really should take into consideration. It's like sometimes mothers smother their kids, sometimes mothers are helicopter moms, and they're so focused on their children that they lose themselves. And I think
Mm.
the main thing that I would have done differently is just to be able to find myself and
Yeah.
like really know who I am, because that's kind of what I'm doing now. And I just think, as a mom, like if you're listening to this, one day your kids are going to be grown up
Yeah.
and they're going to have their own things going on in life, and you're going to have to find a way to fill your time, and you don't want to be, counterproductive. So it's good to, try to get to know yourself along the way, try to devote time to yourself, take care of yourself. I feel like I would have probably had more teeth in my mouth, girl, if I didn't have kids. I'm gonna be honest with you, because it tears up your teeth.
But you ain't got no
And
teeth. I see
I got teeth, but you can't see the ones I ain't got.
teeth.
And look, I'm an open book, so I'm not ashamed of anything. Like my story is my story, and
Yeah.
I've lived it, but there's just so many ways that I feel like I could have discovered myself more, or just kind of been more self-aware
Yeah. Yeah.
to know what it is that I really wanted if I had made a more responsible decision.
Yeah. So what is your advice to other women who may be having similar feelings of regret about motherhood?
Definitely do not beat yourself up about it. Number one,
Mm-hmm.
allow your feelings to be your feelings, feel them, because the more that you push them away, the harder it's going to be to rationalize them and deal with them.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely don't feel ashamed of yourself for the way
Mm-hmm.
that you feel, because more than likely the reason why you feel that way is because you have not been supported.
Yeah.
And I feel like what I would say to mothers who are in that position is like, understand that, no matter what path you choose, kind of what we talked about, you're going to have different situations that happen. And, try to find the blessing. And I know that's hard when you're struggling and you ain't got no money to pay your bills. It's hard to see the silver lining in a situation. But what has really benefited my life and even created connections like this with me and you being on the Professional Homegirl podcast is
Come
like,
on now. Come on.
listen, like I never knew that I would be here. And I've been interviewed before, but not like in this monumental of a way for me, like with something that's close to my heart so deeply like this.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's a sign that me being more grateful for the good times and the bad times
Yeah.
allow for more blessings to come into my life, because it's basically like, whoever you believe in, whoever you pray to as an individual, it's like your choices of
Mm-hmm.
how you handle situations and how you look at situations is going to determine the way you view your life.
Yeah. That's a fact.
And
Mm-hmm.
I tell people all the time, happiness is a choice. So if you're a mother who's in that situation where you do have regrets and you wish you might, could go back and change a few things, it's not wrong to feel like that, but it is your responsibility for you and your children to try to make the most out of whatever you've been dealt. And as
Mm-hmm.
my mom used to say, when life gives you lemons, you make lemonade. And when you got too many lemons, you find some pie or some crust and you
Right.
do something with it and you handle your business.
Yeah. Facts,
So,
facts, facts. And last but not least, what is your advice you would like to give the women considering those who are considering becoming mothers?
oh, wow. I would definitely make sure that you really understand if that's what you want and why you want it.
Yeah.
If you're considering becoming a mother and wanting children, why do you want children? Because if it's a situation like me where I was lonely and I wanted to have family where I felt like I didn't have family, that's the wrong choice.
Mm,
If it's a situation where you see your friends having kids and everybody's getting married and having kids
that's a good
and you want to
point.
have a kid, that's the wrong choice. You have to really know why you want that child. And if you have not gone deep within yourself and really looked in the mirror and figured out what that reason is and why it's there, then you might want to wait, because it's going to come out when you have that kid.
Yeah. Yeah.
So really consider it beforehand, because not even just with the person who you're with, it's like consider your financial situation, because one thing about it, you're never going to be completely ready.
Right.
You're never going to be completely ready, whether you're a man or a woman. It's literally something that is unexplainable when it comes to like your experience, because not only is everybody's experience going to be different, but everybody is a different person. So you never know how it's going to affect you.
Yeah, I was pregnant and I went to the chop shop
No,
because
I ain't mad. I don't blame you not one bit.
but the reason why is because like my upbringing was very challenging, and I just did not want that for my child. Me and the father, me and the child's father, or the person who got me pregnant, should I say, we weren't together. We were just having a good time. He already had
Right.
like 1,000 kids. He was like a professional baby daddy.
Girl.
And I just did not want that for my child.
Right.
Like you, and also I just wasn't financially secure. Like I think that I always wanted to make sure that regardless what happened, me and my child was good.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely agree with you. Like you gotta
For
really
sure.
like figure out what is your reasons why, because it's having a child is no joke. Like
No.
that's a big responsibility.
And you can't give that child to nobody, and you shouldn't want to. And if you
Yeah.
like that, this is the thing I would suggest too. Go into I don't know, but go into a maybe a a child care facility if you can, and volunteer with kids.
Yeah.
Do some type of volunteering at summer camp.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because I know it's a lot of kids at summer camp, but get some familiarity about yourself, about what you're about to go into, because babysit somebody else's kids. Like,
Yeah.
do something if you know people in need, or maybe you could sign up for 𝐃𝐨𝐧'𝐭. I don't know. Do something to where you can familiarize yourself with the duties and responsibilities and the emotional and mental states that you're going to be placed in when you're in that position, as much as possible, because that's really going to determine and show you if you have the capacity as a woman to be able to deal with those things.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, just try to be as prepared as possible, but know that you're not going to know everything, and you won't be prepared.
Right. I feel like our conversation went by fast.
Oh my God, yes. I had such a good time. This was a great conversation, girl. Oh my God. We could talk about so
Yes.
many things.
No, this was so good. I'm so happy that we were able to make this happen.
I
And
know, me
Nikki and my
too.
Henny did not stop us.
Listen, Nikki was trying to get into some things, okay?
Yes, but I really appreciate your transparency and just you wanting to come on and just share your story. And I know that this is going to resonate with a lot of people, including women, obviously. So I appreciate you, sis. I really do.
Of course. And I appreciate you for having me. And that's what I want. I want the story to resonate and be able to help somebody. So I feel like we accomplished the goal.
Yes. And to the listeners, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please make sure to follow me at hello@thephgpodcast.com. And until next time, everyone, later.
Bye.